everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Please leave a comment if you like the video. Definitely share it. And make sure you hit that notification button, because some people have said they haven't been getting notified when a video goes up. And I would definitely want you to make sure you get that content and get it first. So some people have asked me about the people that I've been in prison with that were famous. Let's talk about some of them people. What are they really like? You know, you see them on CNN or you see them on Fox News. You read about these people in the newspaper. But really, how are they in person? What are they really like? Let's talk about Steve Cashapp, the mafia cop. New York City detective, right? Ran the homicide division for organized crime. But yet, he was the guy killing the people. What? What did I just say? The homicide detective, the boss over organized crime homicides, was the dude out killing people. What was he like in prison? I'll tell you this, he had eyes that were cold. You could look in his eyes and see that he was cold. You know, that's the one thing that I realized when I was in prison, that you can look at these dudes and see that they're killers, man. You can actually see that they're killers, that they've killed people. It's just a different look, man. These ain't guys that are out on the street just killing people to kill them. These aren't guys that get in an argument and just beef with someone. These guys are stone cold killers, man. Stone cold killers. Steve Cashapp. You know, he got involved in the mob because his father had pushed him that way. And eventually he had worked his way up the ranks and became that homicide detective. But what was he like in prison? If you were to see him in prison, you would have never expected it. When he was arrested, he was clean cut, kept his hair back, silver and gray. But he had let his hair grow. He had long hair. He was just a different type of dude. I guess you could say at times very respectful, but at other times very weird. He was just a weird dude. It was odd to me to see him, man, get pulled over. I remember a day when he got pulled over outside the chow hall, and they had put him on the wall, and they patted him down. And I'm like, it's crazy to have these cops patting him down, you know? And where did he start out at? He started out at one of the most dangerous federal prisons in the country. He started out at Victorville. You know, I commented about this before. One of the homies from Boston actually ran the AB car. He was actually Aryan Brotherhood over in Victorville. I'm not going to put his name out there or associate his name with, you know, the actual gang. But this dude was a dangerous dude, man, well respected. And he had went to Steve and he had told Steve, look, Steve, you know, I know who you are. You know, you're from New York, East Coast guy. You know, I understand your story, how you got involved in the mob. You were helping the mob. You were killing dudes. You really were a criminal. He said, but man, you got that slash there. You got that cop thing on there too, man. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have these dudes kill you. Pretty much I'm going to let you go up top. And what does go up top mean? Go up top means I'm going to let you go check into PC and get a transfer and go to a different jail. Usually in federal prison, man, when you're a cop or a snitch or you told on someone or, you know, you molested kids or you rape somebody or you steal from somebody, they don't just let you go up top, at least not in the prisons that I've been in. Instead, they stab you, beat you, sometimes kill you. So he ended up letting Steve go up top. Steve went up top, and they sent him to USP Coleman 2, where it's a gang dropout yard. But don't get it twisted. If you go to USP Coleman 2, it's supposed to be a gang dropout yard, but there's some dangerous dudes there. And it's almost like, especially in the Mexican community, the Spanish community, you know, them guys drop out of gangs and they've been rivals. You know, the Norteños might be rivals with the Sureños. And when they get there, man, those dudes actually form up a brand new gang. It's like a dropout gang. They all stick together and they become one unit. And I've seen some dangerous things happen at Coleman 2. So anyway, Steve Cashapp ended up in Coleman 2. And, you know, just talking to the dude, man, like I said, man, he's very respectful, but very cold. You can see the coldness in him. And he would talk about on a daily basis how he was going to win his appeal and go back to Las Vegas. And then when he got back to Las Vegas, he was going to take off and go to another country. And I remember the first day that he had came to, you know, Coleman 2, to the Coleman prison, right? When he got to Coleman, there was another guy, another mob guy there, Baldo. Baldo was supposedly a hitman for, you know, the mob. Dangerous guy. He had gave Steve a package. You know, when you get to prison, usually the Italians will look out for the Italians. The mob guys look out for the mob guys. You know, you get a sweatsuit. They give you sneakers, food, deodorant, all the things that you need to get started. And I remember Baldo, and I actually watched this when Steve Cashapp got to the prison. Baldo had given Steve a package, and he told him, he said, look, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you this package just because of who your father was and, you know, the things that you've done. But after today, we'll never talk again. Don't talk to me. I don't talk to you. Just pretend you don't know me. But I'm giving you this package out of respect. And that's what Baldo did. He gave him the package out of respect. And a lot of them other mob guys really didn't talk to him. Vic Amuso, I believe, was there at the time. Vic didn't talk to him. Steve Cashapp was a loner. He was a guy that was just on his own. And I happened to be his cellie, one of his first cellies when he came there. They put him in a cell with me. And eventually, you know, he moved out and went to wherever he needed to go. And just living with the dude, man. You know, sometimes, even being in prison, you might be fascinated by famous people. A lot of other prisoners were fascinated by famous people. And I can say I wasn't fascinated by any famous people except for one person, that was Whitey Bulger. And we'll talk about Whitey in a minute too, out of Boston. But for me, he was just a regular old dude, man. He was just a regular old dude that I thought was a little bit weird. You know, he liked to make little pasta meals on the weekend. He was real slim. He worked out every morning. He used to eat, you know, very sparingly. He wouldn't eat a lot, but on the weekends he would eat a little bowl of pasta. Let me see, what else? How else could I describe Steve, man? Just as I said, man, just kind of a laid-back, weird dude. He didn't look like a cop anymore because he had that long hair, scruffy-looking face. But when you talked to him, you could see that he was a killer. Killers just have that natural look. They have that killer look, that killer instinct. If you ever seen a killer, not some dude that's out shooting dudes on the street corner, they get in an argument and just shoot. So I'm talking about someone that continuously kills people. I'm telling you now that they have that look. And that brings us to Whitey Bulger. How was Whitey in federal prison? Well, I only got to spend time with Whitey Bulger when I was in the hole. I'd served about 13 months in the hole. He had got stabbed. He came to the hole. And while he was in the hole, he was on cell alone, rec alone. That means nobody could live with this guy. He had to live with himself. He had to go to rec by himself, but we would be in rec cages. Every day we get an hour to go to rec. Sometimes they leave us out there for 2-3 hours at this prison. And I get stuck talking to Whitey, which I didn't mind because I was interested. You know, being that I'm Irish, being that Whitey was Irish, I had heard all the stories that, you know, he told on people, and, you know, they alleged that he was a sex offender. Honestly, I don't believe that he was little girls. I don't. As far as telling on people, I mean, the facts are the facts, right? The truth always stands alone to represent itself. But I was fascinated by him because no matter what they say, okay, he was a rat, he was a snitch, he was also a killer. He was a stone cold killer. And you live by the sword, you die by the sword, right? And that's how, you know, Whitey, his life was ended. His life was ended by the sword, by violence, by the same thing that he projected to other people. He killed a lot of people. And I would talk to him and I'd ask him, man, how were you on the run so long? He said, it's simple, man. You never go out after dark. You only go out during the day. The cops usually don't pull people over during the day. You know, you might run a stop sign at night and they're pulling you over. And I said, man, they used to talk about you being in London and being this place. I said, man, I was right under their eyes. They just couldn't find me. I just lived a normal life, Chad. And I kind of look at this dude, and he doesn't look how he looks when he got arrested. He looks old. He looked decrepit. He looked beat up, but his eyes looked young. And again, he had those killer eyes, man. He had those eyes that not everybody possesses, that only people like him possess. It's hard to explain. But those of you that have met killers in prison, those people that have interviewed killers on 60 Minutes and shows like that, I know that they see the same thing that I see. And I remember Whitey telling me stories about when he was in Alcatraz. And of course that grabbed my attention. He told me a time when they had put him in the hole and they sprayed him. It was freezing cold in there. They sprayed him with a fire hose. And back then they used to do stuff like that to people, man, because there was no repercussions. There was no accountability for prison guards. Said they had sprayed him and left him in the cell freezing. He thought he was going to die. He was shivering. He was laying on the concrete floor. And he told me that he was praying that God would save him, that God would get him out of there. Now, how ironic is that? He spent that time in Alcatraz. At one point, he was praying for mercy and compassion. But throughout his life, Whitey didn't have a lot of compassion for people. And eventually he was stabbed in prison. He got moved from Coleman, Florida. Got sent to another prison in Tucson. He got sent because he was flirting with he had a little something going on with the psychiatrist. And when he would tell me about it, after he had got transferred from Coleman, he would joke and play. And you could see it excited him. It was something that he had, just an old memory. Or a new memory. Probably one of the only memories that he would ever have in prison. And eventually he was stabbed by another Boston guy that wanted to check in on the yard. So when Whitey got stabbed, that's how they ended up putting him in the hole, and they sold alone, wrecked alone. But Whitey Bulger was just a different type of dude, man. And, like I said, I talked to him every day for hours, man, 2-3 hours a day, and just picked his brain. And he knew he was never getting out of prison, but he had a fascination that somehow he could escape. And he used to talk about, other people that had escaped, and I just was like, this guy's way too old to be escaping. Just wait. It just isn't going to work out for him. How could he possibly get over the fence or over a wall? Or what happens if he got stuck in the razor wire? So those of you that ever seen the movie The Departed, and I guess they just had a new movie, well, not new, but 4 or 5 years ago about Whitey Bulger. That's who Whitey Bulger is. Was he dangerous? Yes. Was his brother someone important that had connections? Yes. And I guess he kind of operated like he thought it was okay to tell on other people as far as the Italians because he was Irish and they were the competition. But Whitey Bulger is who he was. And most of you might know that Whitey Bulger went to USP Hazleton when he got booted from the other prison. He ended up going to Hazleton. When he got to Hazleton, they killed him. He probably wasn't there 12 hours. He was an old decrepit man in a wheelchair. And they killed him. But why did they kill him? They killed him because of the allegations of being a snitch, the allegations of child molesting. And you know what? He was a high-profile dude. And some dudes in there are like, man, I'm going to kill this dude. Because in their own mind, they want to be high-profile. So what other famous dudes have I been with? Let's talk about Alan Stanford. Alan Stanford was a dude that ran a Ponzi scheme, was a billionaire, had owned banks in Antigua and all different places. And I was on the yard with this cat. And this cat was one of the most arrogant dudes I've ever met in my life, and he lived in my unit. And, I would talk to him about the law, talk to him about certain things. And they sent someone to come visit him from the Hustler magazine. They wanted to write an article about Mitt Romney. They wanted to write an article about Mitt Romney and about Obama. And they felt that Alan Stanford had some information about that. And they actually promised him that they would pull strings for him behind the scenes to get him out of prison. But he said, I got an appeal in, Chad. What do you think I should do? I said, man, you do whatever you got to do, man. I mean, I don't know, man. And then he had some other people that came from, I want to say, I think it was about Mitt Romney. Some other people came from the Department of Justice. And they, talked to him, and they wanted to know certain things about money that, he had donated to Mitt Romney's campaign and stuff like that. And they said that Obama would make sure that he got clemency. And if you think that stuff don't work behind the scenes, I'm telling you that it does. And he told them, I got my appeal in. I'm waiting on my appeal. He was hopeful to win his appeal. But, Alan Stanford was, almost the victim of numerous extortion attempts. While I was with him in USP Coleman, dudes had plotted to rob him, to extort him. They tried to extort him. And this had happened to him already, where he was, being extorted in a Texas prison. And some Mexican dudes just demolished him. Look at this picture of him right here. When you got money and you walk into prison, man, you are a target. And if you slip, you become a victim. And Alan Stanford became a victim. Look at his eye. I mean, that's after the cops had cleaned him up and, were putting him on an ambulance to get him to an outside hospital. And I know he had told me he had to get reconstructive surgery for his face, stuff like that. But, he was one of the most arrogant dudes on the compound. And you would think that after he had got, beat up on by the Mexicans, that he would have changed his tune or changed his character, but he didn't. Just an arrogant fellow, believed he was going to get out. I don't even know if he got out. I'm going to check and see. But I doubt it very highly. Stole millions and millions and millions of dollars from people. And usually when you steal millions of dollars, ever since, the Bernie Madoff case, pretty much, man, if you're stealing people's money, you're in the spotlight, these people are going to send you away until the sun burns out. They're going to make sure that you die in prison. And then we can talk about the young Somalian pirate, who actually was kind of like one of my little buddies in prison. And I've been with other famous people. Maybe we'll do another video on them, but I don't want to keep you forever. But the young pirate, he was the guy from that Captain Phillips movie or Phelps movie. The Navy SEALs went out there and, they killed everyone on the boat except for him, I believe. And I had met him in prison. He lived a couple doors down from me. And he used to call me John Hinckley. I didn't know who the hell John Hinckley was. So, of course, I had to go do the research. I find out that John Hinckley is the guy that shot Ronald Reagan. Well, I was just a young fella back then. So I didn't know who John Hinckley was. And I just thought to myself, I remember thinking, this kid must have seen a Time magazine or something, was floating around in his country from many, many years ago. Or it was like a 1999 Turn Back the Clock magazine. And he'd seen John Hinckley in there. And that was something that stuck in his mind, John Hinckley. I guess he thought I looked like John Hinckley. Back then I used to have all my hair, so I could comb it to the side. And he just related me with that guy. And he'd always tell me, Chad, Mr. Chad, can you give me a potato chip? His English wasn't the best. He was Muslim. The Muslims looked out for him. But I used to look out for him, man. He didn't really have no money. I mean, he's from, I think Somalia. You think anybody's sending him commissary money from Somalia? They could hardly eat themselves over there. You think his family members were sending him anything? You might remember, he was the guy that they said was 14 years old. They couldn't prosecute him, but they did anyway. The government alleged he wasn't 14, that he was 16 or 17. He was just a little skinny fella. Teeth were messed up, dirty. But I consider him a famous dude because he was a Somalian pirate that, all that stuff was going on back then where, if you rowed your boat into certain places, these pirates were robbing you. And to me, pirates were always like make-believe. At least that's what I thought. Well, this dude was not make-believe. He was not make-believe. He was real. He was a pirate. He was influenced by, men that were much older than him. And I'm sure that they were robbing these boats, man, for survival. When you have nothing to eat, no clothes to wear, no future, and you're living to die. That's what I call that, living to die. You're living in that country, you're living to die. What is there to look forward to? So you gotta rob, you gotta steal, and that's what they do. But these are some of the famous people that I was with in prison. But let's look at them one more time. Steve Caracappa, Stone Cold Killer, sentenced to life. These are the type of people that you will be in prison with. If you go out and kill people, these are the type of sentences that you'll end up with. Whitey Bulger, alleged to have chopped people up in a basement. Shot people in the head, men, women. Was he dangerous? He was dangerous. He wasn't too dangerous now that he was in a wheelchair, an old, decrepit old man. But that's not the point. The point is he had a life sentence. The point is that he was going to die in prison, and that's exactly what happened to him. That's what happened to Steve Caracappa, too. He died in prison. He's no longer here. And he looked like he was in good health. He was slim, worked out every morning. He jogged every morning, walked the yard nonstop for his walking exercise. But he died in prison. You want to die in prison? I know you don't want to die in prison. And for the guy that, told me on the video, man, he really thought he could do a 5-year bid, when you left me that comment, I want to tell you, man, that you might think that now, but I promise you, after a year in prison, you're going to start to second-guess that decision, second-guess that choice or that belief. There's something easy to say, man. Your worst day out here is 10 times better than your best day in prison. Don't forget that, man. Don't ever forget that. Alan Stanford, I don't know if he's out. I doubt it very highly, but he's going to die in prison too. All the money that he had, can't get him anything special except for some extra trays in the chow hall. Sometimes people working in the chow hall make these little trays of burgers and they hook you up with some stuff out of the staff kitchen. But that's the highlight of Alan Stanford's life. Buying staff kitchen food. He'll never know what it's like to eat a steak ever again. He'll never know what it's like to eat shrimp ever again, or to be out on a yacht, or to be sitting on a beach and hanging out with some pretty young ladies. For now, his life is concrete and steel until the day that he dies. The only thing he can do is watch the razor wire dance in the wind as the sun glistens off it. That's it. That's the view he gets now. He doesn't get the view of the ocean anymore. Doesn't. And the pirate. He's going to spend the best years of his life in prison. Or maybe his best years are in prison. Maybe being in prison here is better than being in his own country, starving. And I say that from experience because I've had people tell me that. I've had Hispanic dudes tell me, man, I'd rather be here, man, than to be over there. I'd rather be here in prison, man. I got everything. I work in the chow hall. I get chicken. I get real milk. I hustle. I have my friends right here. That was something that used to drive me nuts, man. I've actually had dudes tell me that, man. And you know, sometimes being out of prison, you feel like maybe prison is easier. You have days like that. I know I do. Prison emotionally destroys people, man. And I never realized it until I walked out of prison. But now I see it. Now I feel it. I have those days, man. I have those days, but I always remind myself. There's always that thing that clicks, and I say, my best day in prison cannot compare to my worst day out here. And I mean that, man. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Blood on the Razor Wire TV, bringing it to you real, bringing it to you raw. Until tomorrow, I'm out.